Welcome to the art and science of complex sales. You've joined us in the Coaching Quarter. This podcast is dedicated to elevating the sales profession. Our listeners range from first-time salespeople to seasoned sales leaders and driven CEOs. They all come to learn from the best in the business as we interview top sales transformation specialists, go-to-market leaders, revenue thought leaders, and more with only one question on our minds: how we get better together. This 12-episode quarter, brought to you by Membrane.com, will start to hone in on a key element in performance: sales coaching. Each of our guests speaks to this a bit differently and brings their own unique take, but all cover the topic, how to execute, and the exponential impact it makes. So let's start shining bright and get kicked off with today's guest. Raymond Cardinale is a coach for coaches and a sales leader for sales leaders. Founder and owner of E3 Performance Solutions, a 30-year veteran, and a committed sales leader, Ray learned early on in his career that his team's success depended on his ability to effectively teach and coach them to sell in a systematic manner. From this learning eventually came a proprietary system dedicated to helping teams elevate their sales results by increasing coaching capabilities. Through E3, he's able to live out his dream and make a broad impact across companies and industries by empowering coaching excellence. Let's get started and learn from Raymond. Ray, welcome to the program. How you doing, my man?
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
We've been talking about this for long enough. It's good to actually make it happen.
Yeah.
Well, hey, why don't we get started? Why don't you, if you don't mind, giving the listeners some or your background? I think it'd be really helpful for setting the stage for the conversation.
Sure. So I'm Raymond Cardinale. I'm president and CEO of E3 Performance Solutions. And our company's been around for about 20 years. I started in sales probably when I was born. I grew up in New York City, and I was always doing side hustles, working, trying to figure things out. I grew up with a ethnic father that work ethic was everything. So we just, went to work every day. Worked myself through college. When I graduated college, I owned a couple businesses, sold them. And I was lucky enough to get my first job with Xerox back when they were still the best of the best. And Xerox taught me how to build processes, how to sell, the art of selling, so much stuff. Obviously, the Xerox training went on to be, in every other organization. But Xerox back in the late 80s, early 90s was the best of the best. So I got cut. My teeth got cut on the right thing. The funny thing was my first job was in North Carolina, and I'm a New Yorker. And the first 3 months I had the job, I almost got fired because I thought I knew everything. So I was a city boy thinking, and a manager pulled me aside who became a mentor and said, if you would just work the skills, you have the talent to be really good. I've always been able to get people to move forward. And so he taught me that it's an art, how to communicate, how to pay attention, how to build processes, not people. People leave, processes stay. So I got into a couple businesses, did really well, was always a top salesperson, got into an ownership piece, did really well with that. We had about 3,000 people. We were trying to build a company from 400 million to 650. We got that done, which was really fun, learning some techniques of how to manage people. And then I moved to Nashville with the company, and then I went another direction and found the company I'm with now. And the guy had a great model, but he didn't really know how to sell. He was just really brilliant. I knew how to sell, so we put this thing that we're going to talk about today together. And it's a behavioral training program that gives you consistent performance, gives the managers a tool. So I was always good at that. I was always good at being able to take, matter of fact, when I was at Xerox, when I got into management school, I had the go to the worst district job. So I'd go to the worst district, turn them around. Oh, you're doing a good job. We're going to move you to another worst district. Because I was just really good at doing that. I was really good at getting people to move forward, getting rid of the people that weren't producing, getting people to produce. So I learned really, really early on how to do that, not knowing I was learning that. It's just pushed on you, and then you get into a leadership position. You realize, oh, I'm doing some of the stuff that they told me to do. So I've been selling my whole life.
Let's go back. I'm fascinated, but I didn't know the college business story. So what were your college business?
So when I graduated high school, my mom and dad didn't graduate high school. My dad patted me on the back and said, "Great, now get through college." Mm-hmm. So we were going to Rhode Island every summer. We grew up in New York, so I went to the University of Rhode Island. So I moved up there. I had a cousin going to school, and I had to figure it out. Well, back then, They had student union jobs, but they were like $4 an hour, and I couldn't pay for college like that. So we painted houses, we cleaned apartments, and we steam cleaned houses. And I ended up owning a business. The steam cleaning business had about 30 people, and then the apartment, because when people would move out, we'd have to go in there and clean it. And I missed a lot of classes doing that, but I made a lot of money. And we had about 10 people doing that for us. And then every spring break, I never went to Florida. I was the kid that stayed and painted the house because I could make a couple $1,000s to put myself through school. So I got through school without any debt. But I just thought that's the way you do it. Yeah. And then I sold everything, moved to North Carolina with a friend, took about 6 months off and just waited, and then got a job at Xerox. And I had the work ethic in me. So once they taught me how to hunt and kill, it was pretty easy to do for me.
Well, yeah. So you went from, I mean, that's absolutely brilliant. And going from that entrepreneurial environment where you have to sell to eat, right, and get yourself through to going to the best of the best, the Xerox, the IBM school of the day. What are some of the key takeaways that you brought out of that Xerox schooling and that Xerox time that you had?
So I'm very gregarious in my personality, and I like to help people. And the Xerox mentors I had told me, the way they said it to me, because back then there wasn't political correctness in the office. They could just talk straight. They would say, look, you got a big mouth. Make sure your numbers are always good. Because the first thing they do is they look at your numbers, then they say you can talk. If you're not doing it, they're not going to talk to you. So be a producer. So always be a producer. So that was always in my mind, how to produce. But what they taught me is the process of getting things done consistently. Xerox was really good on processes. And they would say, when I became a manager and you went to the management school, which was really tough, build processes, not people. People leave, processes stay. You be good to your people, but you need to build processes that are scalable, that are, easy to duplicate, more efficient. Even today, we have a consulting side of our business. I meet with presidents of companies and say, we need to hire a couple people to do. No, why? You don't even know what the process is. Why are you throwing people at it? Let's figure out the process first. But that's just a normal way of acting, right? If I'm underwater, I hire people instead of looking at the process and measuring it and making sure it works. So what I got most out of Xerox was how to build processes. And I'll give you an example. So first of all, I won 2 years in a row the Hustle Award, which was Abraham Lincoln's "The only thing that comes to those who wait is what's left behind by those who hustle." And that was a really big new business, new GP. That was a really big award because there was 2,500 reps. And that was just my makeup. But the other thing they taught you is how to drive behaviors. So I was on the phone with a guy from Dallas we're working with last week, the regional manager, and they have a couple offices not performing. So he wants me to ride with him in the offices. So I'm riding in the offices with him, and he talks to the reps that aren't doing whatever they're not doing, because there's 4 or 5 metrics, and he starts talking to them about getting better at it. And I stopped them. I go, no, first thing you need to look at is their calendar. What are they doing? Because good activity drives numbers. Stop worrying about the numbers, worry about their activity. That was all Xerox. Xerox would never talk to you about not closing, not selling enough machines. They would go, show me your calendar. Are you making enough prospecting calls? Are you getting enough demonstrations out there? Are you in front of enough people to sell? They cared more about that because they knew the numbers would drive the results. And so many times today in leadership, sales leadership, we talk about, hey, Raymond's not selling. Let's go see why he's not selling. No, what's his activity? That'll drive everything you need to know. So that was all from Xerox. And, even 20 plus years later, that's how I evaluate everything.
Well, if I recall correctly, it was Xerox that started the idea of the sales process, right?
We did.
They really started the idea of the scalable sales process, and that has come so far. I had a discussion yesterday, which was fascinating. I was talking with a guy, and the question was, what was the one KPI if you're stranded? What is the one KPI that you'd want to keep as a sales leader? His contention was that it was the ability to measure things, stages between the sales process, like moving moving from one to the next. So velocity of the pipeline and the ability to measure those actions. And I actually really agreed with it because it's one of those things that it's productive action that you're measuring. If I had one, you'd be measuring that, right? You need all of the KPIs or all of the activity to do it, all the conversations. But the only thing that's truly moving it through is productive actions if you're taking the right ones. So it was a fascinating conversation.
And that's how we were taught, Paul. We were taught, although there's a lot of KPIs, and Xerox wasn't the only company teaching it, but that was my indoctrination. They were like, there's only one that matters because one will show you where the numbers are. So with Xerox, it was demonstrating machines, because if you don't have a machine in front of somebody, they can't buy, which meant prospecting, cold calling, getting it. It meant all that activity. But they would just come and say, what are your demos? Okay, your demos are high, good. Now we can talk about how to get them out of the funnel. If your demos are low, they know where to go. The demos tells them where you are, even though there's other KPIs. So every time I evaluate a business, I'm like, what's that one thing that I can just look at real quick and say, we're on or we're off? And I know for off what that means in the activities, like you just said, right? Because all these activities lead up to that.
Yeah, because there's a million. It's fascinating. And each business has their own different sales metrics. I think there's 4 that are critical. Number of opportunities in a pipeline velocity, so time and stage, time to close, right? The average value of your deal size, and then your ongoing activity. So I think those are absolutely critical. But it's fascinating how, even in, like, if you look at SaaS or if you look at manufacturing, if you look at those basics all apply, and there's a lot of basics. But then in each of those industries and each of those companies, there turns out to be that 1 or 2 KPIs that's different from the rest of the world that is really, really critical. So how do you go in and find that? I know we're going to talk about some other things in terms of learning and development and coaching and all that stuff, but how do you go in and dissect a business and find those 1 to 2 KPIs that really matter for that company?
What we do is we have to look at the whole process. So when I go in and evaluate a company, now I'm a nook and cranny guy. So I like to go through the process with the salespeople if we're doing that, or customer service people are doing that. So you literally get on the phones with them or go out on a call, look at how they're preparing, how they get the lead, what are they doing, so I can follow the process and document it, right? Because what you're trying to find is scalability, right? It shouldn't be harder to do the second one as it is to do the first one. It should be a flow, right? So first thing we do is try to find the process. Then in the process, you can see what's the one thing that if you had at a pretty high number would make you successful, right? And that one thing is whatever that is. And then what are the activities to build to that? That's what you look for. And then there's skills on the back end, because you got to push it through the funnel and close it and all that stuff, right? So you're always looking at activities to get to whatever that measurement is, and then the skills to pull it out. And that's kind of how we set it up. And that way we can kind of talk about every salesperson can hit quota, because the truth is the top 20% are going to figure it out, right? Your bottom 20% probably aren't going to figure it out. But that middle 60, you can really move the needle with those people if you show them a blueprint of how to do it and hold them accountable for what they should be doing on a daily basis to hit that, right? So that's usually what we do.
That's awesome. And that led you to create. Let's dive a little bit into this other topic that we really want to dive pretty deep in today, which is how do we find that and then increase the scalability of both the skills that are needed, as well as how we train and coach the people to get to that one and then increase their skills to be able to close more and more often. So how do we coach and train effectively en masse? And that's really where one of your passions is right now, correct?
Yes. So when I said we're a behavioral training company, so we start at the beginning. And so we know that managers usually know their products and services well. They sometimes know the competition well. They know how to read a P&L, but they don't know how to develop people. That's not a skill. You usually get pushed into manager because you're either good in sales or all the other things I talked about. So how do managers with time issues, right, because everybody's busy, continue to grow their people and stay consistently productive? And so our tool does that. It's easy to do. You don't need time. All tools. So we decided to give the managers a tool to do this on an ongoing basis, right? And we use all the analogies. You and I have talked before. Like, we live in Nashville. We have a professional football team here. These guys are the best at the best in the world at it. They still block and tackle all week long. They play the game on Sunday, but they block and tackle all week long. So what are you doing to keep the skills going? And a lot of people get out of training, new hire training with a company, and get a pat on the back, and they say, go figure it out. So if you're not constantly reinvesting in them, some of those people get out of the business or are unproductive. So we have a tool that this came all of this passion that gives the manager the ability to be a better leader, the manager the ability to get into coaching situations he or she can't see by the nature of how the tools run, and then a micro training basic skills for the reps to be good at on a monthly basis. And because we're big on the consistency piece. Now, I'll tell you one funny story because you brought up Xerox.
Yeah.
When I was with Xerox, if you hit this number, next month you could not go below that. You could do that number. If you did, you were automatically on probation. If you did it 2 months in a row, you thought you got fired. Nobody even talked to you. You're done. Because their thing was you should be doing the same activities every day to get that number. So how do you get there? You get there by doing the activities that you're supposed to be doing and getting really good at the skills needed to do the activities. So that's kind of where we put our time into.
So let's dive into that a bit. What are some of the key, managers not being coaches? What are some of the key if we call them, I guess deficiencies is the best word, or areas of opportunity. Let's call that much better. What are some of the key areas of opportunity that you're looking at with with managers, sales managers, to help them become better coaches and developers of the people?
So one thing I've learned along the way, even in my businesses that I've owned, is if you want to know what's going on, ask the person doing the job, right? I've created jobs and talked to people doing it every day, and they taught me something's in the way I need to help them with. Even though I know the job, I'm not doing it every day. So one of the things that managers struggle with is how to find out when somebody's not performing, how to get them to perform, right? They don't understand the behavior element of that. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that, like, the tool we created does is the person has to tell you how they're using the skill in their marketplace, which immediately gives you, they know what they're doing. That's a success story I can share, or they're struggling and I need to do some coaching. I know where to coach them because they don't know how to get into that conversation.
Example of a skill. Sorry, I interrupted you. Example of the type of, yeah.
It could be building value, negotiating, asking questions. We're doing a call center now, a pretty big call center, and the reps are struggling, some of the reps, right? And you go meet with them, and there's system prompted questions they have to ask, right, because of insurance. And they're just peppering you with questions. Well, that's not selling. That's not conversational selling. So what are the questions you need to ask? And they don't know to ask those because nobody's trained them on it and held them accountable to it. So the managers are like, we'll just make more calls, or we just got to get more, proposals out there. Okay, but so the other thing I was going to say before is we get called in, and this will probably make you laugh, the VP of sales or the C-suite people call in and say, my people can't close. We're having trouble closing. It's never closing. You didn't ask the right questions up front. You're not presenting the right solution. You didn't do the value sell. It's never closing. But they think because sales aren't coming in, it's closing. And you start dissecting what they're doing, and you realize they're not doing some basic stuff to get to where they can present a good solution and get a yes or a no.
I have a kind of ancillary question on this. Is when you're working with C-suites, and this doesn't need to be specific, but are you finding in the last, say, 10 years that C-suites are getting more educated or less educated when it comes to the nature of sales? Meaning, when you go in, are you? Because I've had varying opinions on this, but in terms of sales and the ability, the art, and the science of doing the job, are CEOs getting better at that, or is there a huge opportunity to grow?
So in our world, there's a huge opportunity to grow. And the reason is because sometimes bigger companies especially have a training department that has so much they have to do between new hire training, retention of people, hiring new people and all that stuff, and then any new product or service introductions, that they sometimes don't give the field managers what they need to grow their teams. And they think, I'm doing everything. Well, you're not. And so a lot of times when we show up, the funny thing is when we show them our product, they go, well, we don't do that. That's really, really cool. So we always say, in lieu of doing a skill meeting once a month, what are you doing? And they'll say, well, we don't do one every month. We do, okay, so I promise you this will work better than nothing. It's a joke, but it's like you're not doing the stuff that they need. Managers need stuff. We get in organizations, they do this big training launch, and then you ride back in the field with the managers, and they go, no, we don't do it like that out here. Here's how we do it. Because there's no accountability to anything, because they just throw it out there, and they have to. It's not their fault. By nature, they throw it out there. So even the way we built the program, we built everything to be behaviorally sound. Give you a module to run for free. Try before you buy, right? Because we know, and you need to try it. You need to make sure it works, and then we'll talk about how we can do business together, right? Because it's usually something you're not doing. Mm-hmm. So, but I think if there's bigger opportunity, because headcount's down, it's hard to hire people, and they keep them staying. People leave faster now than they ever did. I mean, you pick a resume up, and over the last 5 years, a guy had 4 jobs. That's normal now. So it's hard, and a lot of times it's because you're not investing in them, right? So we used to say, if you don't make them feel valued, you're not investing in them. They're going to become a competitor or get out of the business, right?
Yeah. The reason I asked that question is, I've had some varying opinions on it, and some data that's come from research that the C-suite is actually farther away these days than it ever has been before from sales, especially in big companies. And it's mainly because most of them are coming from product, engineering, and finance. Much of the C-suite is coming from those, especially the CEO level in larger companies, instead of sales having been and revenue production having been a breeding ground for the CEO. So how can we close that gap and help close that gap? I have some ideas on it, but how can we really focus on educating that C-suite around what is the critical things they need to solve and arm their salespeople with and arm sales with all the time, and have them focus on that, because it's such a critical part of driving sustainable revenue and having happy people, right?
It is. And one of the other big things that plays into that, Paul, is, nothing's absolute, but for the most part, the manager level, they're not really good coaches. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't really know how to coach somebody to performance. They know how to talk about the performance issue, but they don't know how to, really coach somebody the right way. They don't know how to give proper feedback. They don't know how to break it up to, hey, you did this real well, but they have to work on this. There's no buts. They got to kind of separate it. They're not really good at that, and they don't get any training in that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was with one of the best companies in the world when I started, and when they put me in management, it says, hey, that team's underperforming, go figure it out. And I just happened to be a guy that could read books and was really good at it and did it on my own, but they don't. So there's a leadership deficiency, right? And so the leadership deficiency plays to what you're saying, right? Yeah. Like, if I'm going to promote you to a district manager job, I'm looking at, do you know the business? Have you done it before? Are you a good communicator? I'm not looking at your leadership skills. I'm not looking at your coaching skills. So you get in there and you're like, I got 40 people I got to manage. I got 40 different personalities, and I don't really know how to coach. I'm just making it up as I go, Mm-hmm. So we have a client right now that absolutely is going through this, and their district managers, it's an insurance company, are being what they call super agents. They just come in and just, here, let me do it for you. That's not growing the person, because they don't know how to. So your question's right. They're more distant. There's a bigger opportunity, but there's not a lot of emphasis put on the leadership and coaching part of it. Even at the C-suite, we have some executive leadership programs, and I hate to say this, but you get these C-suite, even CEOs in this program, and you're like, oh my gosh, you really don't know what to do. And you're running the company. Smart guy, knows the business, not that part, but it's like, how do you get, because the true manager is trying to get the people to not need them, right? You're trying to build them up to not need them, grow them. Maybe somebody takes my position, not need them. The true manager, if they're dependent on you, you're not doing the right things.
Yep.
And that's at the beginning. I know you have to do that, but it's, so that happens a lot from what you're saying on C-suite level down.
I had breakfast the other day with, it's one of my favorite people in the world, but he always brings up the fact that I had started a business some time ago, and we ran it pretty well. We got successful. We ran it. I was in it for 10 years. It was a nice sized business, but one of my things that and he keeps bringing it up like almost every time we go is I told him, like, in our interview process, I said, if we hire you, I want you to take my job. Like, ultimately that's what I want. And I think that you do want that with every manager, and maybe not take your job, but enable them to have the skills to be able to do their job really well, and then start training them for the next level of growth. And that is one of the things that I think it's been a little bit lost in sales with a turn and burn philosophy that a lot of VCs have brought to the table of, let's just shove people. Process is critical. Process is absolutely critical, but to shove like an SDR into a process and force them in, say, okay, here's the process, but I'm not going to invest in you enough to arm you with the skills or the coaching or the ongoing support that you need to make that process really good. Just fight it out of the process, and whoever does enough time wins, right? And I've seen that happen a lot in today's culture. So how do we make that argument? And is there a numerical way? Have you found a numerical way to make that argument for, or an ROI way to make that argument for, you need coaches, or the executive level has to understand the sales process and how revenue is generated and the skills that are needed. Your frontline VPs, your frontline managers have to know how to coach to get these people the most effective they can be. Do you have any great stories of like turnarounds or numbers that you can make that argument?
So yeah, that's been our business, because a lot of times when we get called in with the bigger companies, they have a training department that's producing stuff, and we come in and give them this field generated tool. And sometimes they fight us, so we have to go out in the field and get some managers to adapt it, and they have success, and then it goes corporately. And so when I'll give you a couple stories. So when we worked with ADT for about 14 years, we're still working with them. We used to do everything, but after a while, you build so much content, they could manage it, so you're just kind of sidelined. And so ADT got bought by Tyco years ago. This is 15 years ago, and they had 3,500 reps out there that were like, oh, we're losing our job. And we had, at the time, it was in a box. Now it's online. So we had a multimedia kit going out to, 1,000 locations. The CEO, we had audio tapes for the reps, so they can have audio tapes or MP3s they can have in their car. They have some learning part of the program. And the CEO called me up, and he said, I need to get a message to everybody. I don't know how to do it. You're talking to 3,000 reps every month in this box. Can I jump on a meeting? So we recorded him, put him in an MP3 2 months in a row, and he was in every rep's car every month for 2 months in a row, and it calmed everybody down. Had nothing to do with our product, nothing to do with training. It was just that we're communicating to his audience, and he couldn't get there fast enough, and we got him there. And he just said, here's what's happening. ADT's still around. It's just money. It's not nobody's leaving. But he couldn't talk to 3,000 reps that fast. And so we had the mechanism, because we're touching all the offices and we're pulling all that data every month and giving skills and had all these tools, that he just jumped on a tool. And he called us. He generated it. He said, I'm in trouble. I can't get, these people are leaving. My good people are leaving. They think they're losing a job. So that's one really funny story, because when him and I are still close friends, and he talks about that. And of course, I try to take credit, and he said it was his idea. So we laughed about it. But our tool is really is generated for the field delivered manager that has a problem keeping people consistent. So we say you got to be doing things on an ongoing basis, right? You got to have some recurring meetings. You got to have, and they won't do it on their own, right? In our leadership class, we always say, who's busy? And everybody raises their hand in the room. And my saying is, busy is an excuse to not get something done because we're all busy, right? I didn't get that done because I was busy. That's an excuse. It needed to be done. You got to figure it out. Now, I know life's real. We all struggle with that. But that's a real easy cop-out, isn't it? I'm busy. Well, there's 3 things you have to get done today. Those 3 things have to get done. Everything else.
You could be busy sleeping or busy. Yeah. I always, whenever I hear that, I think of there's a great. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I got kids. Despicable Me. There's like a scene. There's a scene in there where the little girl walks up to the guy and he's like, "You're wearing a jogging suit." He's like, "Or why are you wearing pajamas?" He goes, "It's not pajamas. It's a jogging suit." He goes, "Why are you wearing pajamas to go jogging?" And for me, like that's like. It was the epitome of, well, I'm doing something, being lazy is doing something. You're busy being lazy. But yeah, what are the actual items that you can focus on an ongoing basis? And to coach people to that there has to be an amazing return that you see once you get people getting this effective coaching on an ongoing, regular basis.
We don't do it anymore because we cut it's on the learning management system tools. We cut it up differently. But for 15 years, we guaranteed you would make more and increase sales or whatever measure we're doing than the program cost you for the year, or you get your money back. We'd guarantee it. If people go, how do you know? We don't know. You can call us and say it's not working. We'll give you your money back. In 15 years, it might happen once. Yep. Because it's a behavioral tool. It's something that they're not doing on an ongoing basis. It's made for busy managers. It's easy to use. They don't have any prep time. It's all the instructional design, behavioral sound, all that stuff. It's easy to execute. It's tied to your behaviors, right? So you run a meeting and you're already better at that skill when you leave the meeting. It doesn't stay until you keep doing it. I know it's like a workout program, but it's tied to all the adult learning principles. And it works, and it's really easy to do. We had a girl on the call this morning, Jeff and I, my partner Jeff, and she said a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we did a couple managers that said they're my guys that would tell me if it's good. Mm-hmm. So okay, so we prepped them. They ran a meeting, and she goes, "But I don't think this is going to work for us." Okay, my people don't talk. It's not like that. Okay, well let's just try it. No cost, try it. Today, she said they both said it was the best meeting they ever had. They couldn't shut everybody up. Yeah, because you're asking questions. You're not talking. You're asking the people doing the job, how do you do this? And they have to talk. So we know that works. We know that'll get an ROI. If you give us a criteria, we know we can hit it, right? Mm-hmm. And then as it goes up, you find the managers are becoming better leaders. So they take that principle into every other meeting we're doing. They have much more focus in what they're doing because we have a very structured, easy-to-do meeting, and they know that works. So it's funny. We have a lot of stories of success of stuff like that happening, though.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your work and you getting out there and do that. I think that is that gap that we have now between revenue coaching at the C level, all the way revenue coaching down to sales coaching and skills coaching continuously down to the rep it's just a big gap, and then helping salespeople increase those skills, leverage those skills, and do them it's honorable good work because it's helping people get out there and feed their families. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and I know we have some stuff coming on the coaching forefront that I'm really excited about with Membrane, and we're gonna we'll do some collaboration on that definitely. Is there anything that you want to end the pod with for the audience?
So the other piece that we bring to the table with how we do our program is we have what we call coffee with the coaches. So if you're on the program, let's say there's 10 managers with a company on the program, every 2 months we do a Zoom call for an hour and we go over the modules, what's working, what's not working, so we can help them make sure they're using it right, all that good stuff, right? But then we say, what's in your way? And you won't believe how much stuff comes up that they need help with that they're not getting, Mm-hmm. So about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, I'm on with 37 managers. This is real typical. They know me. They've been doing the program for a while. We do the module review. It's really going well. So, and they bring up some best practices, which is good because the guy in Atlanta, here's what the guy in Dallas is doing, all that real good platform stuff. And then a guy goes, Raymond, I got a guy I can't shut up. He's really good, but I can't shut him up. And everybody laughs. Like, all right, let me tell you how to coach that. So I go through the process of how you coach that. And then another guy goes, well, since you're talking about it, I got a girl that when I call on her, she cries. I'm like, okay, let me show you. Let me tell you the techniques to get that out. And so we all talk about it. Everybody's asking questions. The meeting's over. About an hour later, the VP calls me up and goes, I need to hire you to do some one-on-one coaching with these guys because they're really running into stuff that's in their way and they're really moving it forward. Mm-hmm. So I say that to say we touch you for the whole subscription, whether it's a year or 2 years, and we're always coaching you, trying to get you better. There's no extra cost for that unless you hire us to do something else. But what comes out of those meetings, Paul, on that call, the training department's on it. They're hearing what's in their way, and they still can't get to it with everything else on their plate. So it's really funny because when the managers say, I'm stuck with this, and you got 37 of them saying that, you probably need to fix it. Yep. And we find those little things out too. And sometimes it's a nuance, as you know. Sometimes something little that really clicked and made it, it's a 2-degree tick that made it work.
Well, how do people find you if they want to get in touch with Ray?
They find us through you or through e3performancesolutions.com.
All right. You on LinkedIn as well?
I am.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I will absolutely, I'm excited to publish this. Thank you for, like I said, thank you for the work on coaching. It's such a big opportunity, I believe, in the world of sales. Like that, we just need to drive these revenue frameworks in and drive the skills and the coaching into people to truly help them excel at the job. I think it decreases turnover, it increases trust, and it absolutely increases revenue. Yep. So awesome to have you on that mission, man. And with that, we will sign off from the Art and Science of Complex Sales. Everybody keep shining bright and have an amazing day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Art and Science of Complex Sales. Please take a moment, like, subscribe, share this podcast on all your favorite platforms, and let's get the word out. This podcast is proud to be brought to you by Membrane.com. We are the world's top B2B sales platform. And in the world of B2B sales, with everything from prospecting to business acquisition to managing complex growth, Membrane has the right size technology for your sales team. Our latest innovation, the Coaching Cockpit, empowers your leaders, managers, and team with the information and tools they need to take their skills to the next level and to take advantage of the exponential power of effective sales coaching. With our technology and the top team of sales partners around the world, Membrane is helping to achieve our driving vision. This is, quite simply, elevating the sales profession. To learn more, find us at www.membrane.com. That is MEMBRAIN.com, or contact us via email at sales@membrane.com. Keep shining bright and have a wonderful day.